Welcome to the Newsmakers Podcast. I'm Billy Hollowell, and this is a show where we go behind the headlines every day to bring you an interview with a pastor, entertainer, politician, or other notable news figure. And this is a show, again, it's daily, but it's based on our weekly TV show, which is also called Newsmakers. You can watch it on the CBN News channel and also on our YouTube page. And on this show, every day, we dive deep. It's a little more longer form with one of the people who you will often see on our Newsmakers show or across the CBN News platforms. On today's Newsmakers, Christian college professor Dr. Johnson Varkey, who says he was fired after his university found his teachings too religious, has been reinstated to his position more than a year after being terminated. He joins us today with First Liberty attorney Kayla Toney to talk all about what unfolded and how he's feeling now that he will be heading back to the classroom. Here he is with more of his story. Dr. Varkey, you just scored a major victory. You'll be returning to your classroom by the fall, which I'm sure is very exciting for you. But before we get into that victory, let's talk a little bit about the backstory. You ended up losing your position teaching at a college. What happened? Why were you removed from the classroom?
This happened, I received a letter from the Vice President of Academic Affairs early 2023. It was in January that they are doing ethic violation investigation on me. And I asked him what was the reason and what were the complaints. He wouldn't give me an answer. But 2 weeks later, I received a termination letter. And that letter doesn't explain the whole reasons behind my termination. So I assumed from his wordings that I was doing religious preaching, and I mentioned something against the homosexuals and all those. So I assumed that it would be something related to my teaching on reproductive system, which was towards the end of that semester, and where 4 students walked out of my classroom. So I assumed maybe that was the reason. I never received any copy of any complaints at that time. I didn't receive any explanation. So that's what triggered all these case and my response to that case. And I approached First Liberty to defend me, and all those things happened after that.
So you were trying to get an answer from them in the beginning of, okay, what is the reason for this? I assume you enjoyed your job teaching.
Yeah.
You had given your perspective on something in the classroom there, and students didn't like it if you walked out. But you were left to assume because they weren't being clear, correct, on what it was that led to this.
That is correct. And I was left to assume that, and I received the actual complaint only in July or August, which is almost 6 months later, 7 months later than terminating me.
And what did that official complaint end up saying? Did you get, very specific information in there?
Yeah, it was the same as my termination letter, that I was doing some religious preaching, which I never did in the classroom, and also I made comments against the homosexuals and some anti-abortion rhetoric and jokes about women. All those were the complaints, but it never happened in my classroom.
It is interesting because I will tell you, and I think most people who have gone through the college system know this, on the other side, there are plenty of things that are said in classrooms all the time, right, that are very political sometimes, and nobody seems to ever really do anything or say anything about that. I can think of my own experience seeing things repeatedly that are sort of etched into my memory. Anyway, so Kayla, let me ask you this because it is interesting. This case is very intriguing. When you first heard about the case, and I want to get into the victory because that's why we're here today to talk about that. But when you first heard about it, what was most concerning to you in light of the details we just heard there?
There were a lot of concerns. We were outraged and in fact, that Dr. Varkey's speech had been targeted in this way. There were many First Amendment violations that we saw right away. First, his religious exercise. He is a committed Christian. He's also a pastor, in addition to his role as a biology professor. So we think there was some religious targeting by students who knew he was a pastor and thought they could accuse him of something like religious preaching, even though, again, he was simply teaching straight from the textbook and following those lesson plans that he had used for 19 years. And then there's definitely an academic freedom concern here as well, because professors need to be free to teach from the textbook and also to explain things that students may not agree with, may not have encountered before. That's part of the purpose of education, is that it's supposed to broaden student horizons and expose them to different viewpoints that they may not necessarily agree with. And so those were all concerns. And then we also saw some due process concerns, that Dr. Varkey never had the opportunity to meet with the students who were upset or learn what their complaints were, or have a conversation even with his supervisor, which was part of the college's own procedures for a complaint or a termination. So really a lot of concerns. And we've just been so honored to represent Dr. Varkey. He's a wonderful man of God, a wonderful client, and a wonderful biologist, frankly. And we're just so glad that he's going to be back in the classroom soon.
Well, and one more thing, Kayla, on this, because First Liberty filed a religious discrimination charge with the EEOC. Can you explain what role that played, and maybe even explain a little bit about what a religious discrimination filing looks like for those who don't know?
Yes, absolutely. The EEOC stands for the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and this is a federal agency whose job is to protect the rights of all Americans in the workplace. So if any employee experiences discrimination on the basis of a protected class, such as religion, sex, race, national origin, etc., they can bring a charge with this agency. And the agency then takes about 6 months to investigate or look into the matter themselves. And then most commonly, they will issue a right to sue letter to the employee who made the charge. And then once we have that letter, we're able to file a lawsuit in federal court. And so the timing is interesting here, because we were right about at the point where we would be receiving that notice of right to sue letter. And that's when we heard that Dr. Varkey was going to be reinstated.
Now, is it possible, will you still get a letter from the EEOC potentially on this? Is that still outstanding?
Potentially, but we will be, assuming Dr. Varkey does go back to the classroom as planned, we will be dismissing the EEOC charge as part of the settlement.
Okay. It would be interesting to hear what they say, on this, even though you've already come to a settlement here. So Dr. Varkey, finding out that you were able to come to a settlement and agreement on this that would put you back in the classroom, what did that feel like when you heard that?
Oh, yeah, I was so excited, and I thank the Lord for that outcome, and I am grateful to First Liberty, Kayla, and also to the Lord to put me back in classroom. Yes, I am excited to go back and teach. That I love to do. Yeah.
Have you had, can I ask, have you had support at all from students and faculty in these situations? You hear, obviously there were some who were apparently disgruntled or upset, or, but did you receive support at all? Have you been able to communicate with anybody from the college community as this has been going on now for quite some time?
Yeah, of course. I contacted some of my colleagues, and they were very supportive. And of course, I did not contact any students, because I didn't feel contact any students, because the case was in the hands of First Liberty, and First Liberty was dealing with it. So I didn't want to contact anyone. But of course, yeah, I saw some support from my colleagues. Yes, I did.
Yes, and
Kayla,
speaking of,
go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to jump in there. Speaking of support, Dr. Varkey has also been so encouraged by the support he's received publicly. The media has really been encouraging for him, and also some members of Congress have weighed in and expressed their support as well. And so Dr. Varkey is very grateful for that.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, these things are difficult, because you could just say, okay, I'm going to walk away. I don't want to deal with the headlines. I don't want to deal with the case. I don't want to. A lot comes with this. Dr. Varkey, for you, was it difficult to make the decision to fight to get your job back? Would it have been easier to walk away? Talk a little bit about just your decision. And I mean, obviously it's paid off for you here.
Yeah, because I didn't want to walk out because I did not do anything wrong in the classroom. I just said the truth and I still would stand for the truth. And so I didn't want to walk out because there are many, if I walked out of this, there could be many other people going through the same situations, falsely accused, and they may have to, swallow the repercussions. And so I didn't want that to happen. So that's why I stood, and I'm thankful for First Liberty for standing with me in this whole time. And the Lord gave us the victory.
So Kayla, what can you tell us about the agreement? I don't know how much you can share of the details of that, what that looks like. We know obviously getting back in the classroom is part of that.
Yes, the terms of the settlement we won't be disclosing, but what we can say is that it's very favorable for Dr. Varkey. It includes reinstatement, which is really the best remedy for what he went through, because he gets to be back in the classroom teaching students biology and anatomy just like he had for 19 years. And there's also a favorable recommendation that comes with this. There's a certainty that his record is cleared, that he's in good standing with the college. And that's also really helpful and just important for his career and his academic reputation. All of that is, in a great place right now. And he is planning to go back to the classroom in just a few weeks to teach a class this spring. And if for any reason that falls through, he is guaranteed classes in the fall as well. So we're very encouraged by that.
Final question for you, Dr. Varkey. For any Christian out there who is scared to speak up, or maybe they're going through something similar where they feel like they've been unfairly targeted, what's your advice for them as they deal with some of the struggles and pain that can come along with that?
Yeah, I would say don't quit, because there are people very supportive, just like First Liberties, and stand for the truth. Don't quit, because quitting is your kind of a coward. I would say that, and stand for the truth, and don't quit. And there would be a lot of people supporting you.
Well, I want to thank you both for taking the time today, breaking down this important story and your victory. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
That's all for today's Newsmakers podcast. Be sure to tune in for the next episode of the show, and also head over to the CBN News YouTube channel and the CBN News channel to watch Newsmakers every week. We'll see you soon.